Hey students, welcome to week 6, I think. So we're almost halfway through the semester. We have the distinct pleasure of having Nicky Strahl join us from the Cook County DNR. Is that correct? Is it called the DNR?
Illinois.
Okay,
The
from
Illinois
Illinois.
Department of Natural Resources.
There we go. From the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, working as the wildlife biologist for Cook County. So we're really happy to have you today, Nicky. Thank you so much.
Oh, of course, not a problem. Well, like you said, and let me silence my phone now that I'm actually remembering this. My apologies.
No worries.
So I work for the Illinois State under the Office of Resource Conservation, Department of Natural Resources, and in the DNR, or Department of Natural Resources, there are a couple of different variety of divisions. I work for the Wildlife Division. What I never knew coming into this job is that when you talk about wildlife, you're talking only about what's called game species, or the animals that we are legally allowed to hunt. So that's right off the bat, the definition of wildlife is different than what I used to think and what a lot of people do think. But my specific job, first and foremost, I'm actually the hunter heritage biologist for like basically the northern half of Illinois. I had a coworker down in St. Louis, but he has moved on to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Now I have a counterpart down in Champaign. So between him and I, and then our supervisor, we kind of manage the whole state to try to bring a better understanding about what hunting is really about to urban people, because there's a lot of people who want to eat local and care about where their food comes from, but has never thought about hunting in that way, that's how we originally fed. So that's my primary portion of my job. And then the secondary portion of my job is a district wildlife biologist for all of Cook, including Chicago and DuPage. So some people think I'm only Chicago, some people think I'm only Cook, not Chicago, but I got
That's
everything.
A lot. That's a lot.
The two most populated counties in Illinois are my responsibility.
Wow, that's amazing. So I have some questions for you from the students, including quite a few about hunting, so that's great.
Wonderful.
They had a lot of questions about that. First, I just want to ask a clarifying question. So does the term wildlife also not include fish? Am I correct in that?
Correct. Yeah, we have in
weird.
In the DNR, there is the fisheries department, the forestry department, the wildlife, or not department, I'm sorry, division, forestry division, fisheries division, wildlife division, fish, forest, wildlife, heritage division.
Okay.
So, and the heritage basically handles all the restoration on the land. So you have parks and lands, and they handle mowing the turf grass and making the playgrounds nice and fun for me and my children to go play at. But that's just lands kind of ends where the mowing ends.
Okay.
Heritage kind of takes over the rest of the park, and they maintain the rest of the park, so that it is in a more native environment. Gotcha. Including all of the endangered species. So they handle things like the piping plover and the peregrine falcons that are eating the piping plover in Chicago, which when you're trying to balance one endangered species with another endangered species, that one's entertaining.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, well, I'll start with my first question, which is my question for you. What is a typical day, if you have a typical day, like for you?
I'm assuming you're also referring to pre-COVID.
Let's go with pre-COVID.
But ironically, my job has gotten busier since COVID started. A lot of people now are at home, and they're beginning to notice what's outside a lot more.
Yeah.
So I'm beginning to field a lot of questions, actually, like probably what you and your students are going to have for me. I'm getting a lot of phone calls. So because I have the most populated counties in Illinois, I do take a lot of phone calls. I mean, I think 75 was yesterday, 63 was Monday, 75 was Tuesday.
Oh my gosh.
So obviously I can't call back everybody. I try my best, I prioritize, I figure things out. And then on top of that, that's just the days in the office, is that I'm handling what we have to do in the office. So because I'm a field biologist, I'm out in the field frequently, as well as in the office. When we're in the office, we're dealing things with like law. So we do have to review the law every year, determine if anything needs to be changed, what needs to be changed, how it needs to be changed. We have to send all those changes up the ladder and have it all come back down and fix, you know, all my spelling mistakes. Fun fact, even though you can legally shoot a firearm within the city of Chicago, at William Powers State Recreational Area while hunting. So it is, the background is one of my hunting locations at William
nice.
Powers. You can legally discharge a firearm within city limits as long as you're hunting at that park, and hunting waterfowl. So there's that. Some people, there's a lot of poaching that goes on in a lot of places. So, so there's that. But one of the things, and that hunting at Wolf Lake or William Powers State Recreational Area has been going on since, at least we have records dating back to 1923, I believe it was. So hunting's gone there ever since Native Americans have settled the area. So they know how important that area was for waterfowl, and it's been hunted forever. Up until a couple years ago, for whatever reason, I had noticed that William Powers was taken off the legal area to hunt. Someone just, you know, when they were making changes in the law, they just accidentally hit delete for that one, and it went into law. So,
wow. Legally
speaking, there was a year or two there that we were all thinking it was open for hunting, and we were all hunting out there. Legally, it wasn't. Wow. So things like those changes that can have huge ramifications, because people don't, I mean, I don't even go through the legal, I mean, that website is just.
I don't even know what website you're talking about. That's how much I haven't ever checked the laws.
I don't even remember the acronym. But if you go to the Illinois Administrative Code, that is our law. And trying to read through that, will put anybody to sleep, even in science. So, so we do have to review the laws, because we're human, and humans are behind laws, and some things get accidentally deleted. So I caught that, and we reopened it without letting anybody really know until now. So it's very important to go through and double check laws. So that's what's coming up now, or that's what we usually do now, is all the law reviews. I do take a lot of nuisance calls. So a lot of the animals that interact with humanity, and we don't necessarily want that, those are the types of phone calls that I will receive.
What's the primary nuisance animal you get?
Usually raccoons. Raccoons and then skunks are probably the two top. I get a lot lately. I have been getting a lot more coyote calls, because during COVID, as people, you know, receded into their homes, the wildlife was able to readjust their schedules back to what a more rural animal might be able to deal with, because everyone thinks they see a coyote in the day and, oh my God, or even a raccoon, and it must be diseased or something. And no, I mean, just like you and I, and hopefully we aren't alone in this one, or at least I'm not alone in this one. I need to wake up in the middle of the night to go potty. Same thing with any other nocturnal animal. They nocturnal or diurnal, simply, or crepuscular for that matter, simply only means that you're most active at night, during the day, or like that twilight and dawn hours. That's what crepuscular. So those heavy use at times is what everyone's used to. However, they can, especially coyote, the crepuscular animals like coyotes, they are out during the day. They do need to go out when their prey is out. And a lot of mice and rodents and voles and shrews and a lot of the things that they eat are active, you know, during the day or right at that crepuscular time. So in order for them to feed, you know, to consume and to hunt, they need to be out at those times. But the interesting thing is that, especially coyotes, but all wildlife we've found, urban wildlife we've found, have adjusted their habits for the urban environment and for humanity. So I get, as people started coming in, I get a lot of calls saying, I saw a coyote walking down the road. So there's a lot of education on that one. The other thing I get a lot of calls about is because we do handle any large carnivore. We are watching for that. So I don't know if anyone on Facebook followed, I think his name was Bruno the bear, or the bear that has come into Illinois, kind of wandered around Illinois a little bit and then wandered off. He was a Facebook hit. I guess, thank God, I'm not the large carnivore person. So that's somebody else. So they got to endure all of that day in and day out. But we do monitor for bears because they do wander in from Wisconsin or in that case Missouri, I believe. And they wander in and out, over the Mississippi River, and
they don't understand state borders.
There is no fence, thank God. Although sometimes with our deer population, we kind of want that fence at Wisconsin.
Yeah, I bet.
But c'est la vie. So we handle the bear sightings. We handle wolf sightings because we do get wolves, especially from Wisconsin coming down once in a while. They aren't common. Both bears and wolves are not common at all. They're usually, when the wolves come down, it's usually only a single solitary male looking for territory. Cool. And so when he sees Illinois, he's like, yep. So goes back to Wisconsin or find someplace else. The calls I get the most about with large carnivores are cougars. I do handle cougar calls. Everybody seems to see a cougar, and they call any domestic cat. I'm sorry.
Okay.
A lot of calls I receive actually turn out to be domestic cats, including a Black Panther sighting crossing the railroad. And she's like, I have photos. Let me get you the photos. So she immediately sends me the photos. And it's just a domestic cat crossing the railroad ties. But it happened to be the perspective she was down low because it was up a railroad trellis and up a hill and up a, et cetera, et cetera. But the cat was only this tall compared to the railroad track that was so
perspective's hard for some people. Yeah. Okay, so you're handling calls of nuisance things or of animals people are seeing. You're checking laws in the office. What else are you doing either in the office or when you're in the field?
Okay, so that's a lot of the stuff I do in the office. What I do in the field, that's very different.
Okay.
I can give you an example, just my week alone. Okay. So we're going, hunting season for archery starts on October 1st. Okay. So we're coming up on that deadline. Oh, for anyone who does look at getting into a job, highly recommend keeping a journal. Otherwise, you go insane.
Great plug. We've been practicing that this semester. You're taking field notes and practicing species lists and
exactly. Yep. I highly recommend that. And it was an interesting point because I never understood. I tried to do it. I'm ADD, so I tried to do it just because I never remember stuff when I need to remember it, and by writing it down, it helps me remember. And that helps with timesheets.
Makes sense.
However, one of my former bosses, who I swear is like a surrogate father to me, he had once told me the reason why you want to legally keep journals is if anybody were to try to say that you were on the job or off the job and you were doing something that you shouldn't, or not doing something you should, by keeping a journal, it keeps track of everything. And the courts do see it as a legal document then if you maintain it. If you do it every day, it is considered a legal document then.
Wow.
So, FYI.
Good fun fact, yeah.
Fun fact. So, one of my responsibilities in the field from mid-January to March, end of March, is the chronic wasting disease management. So,
can you talk a little bit about that? We haven't talked yet in class.
Okay. Well, I can. Okay. So, chronic wasting disease is a transmittable spongiform encephalitis. So that's the scientific terms. Yep. So what it really means, basically, transmittable means it can be passed from, in this case, deer to deer. very, very easily. Deer are extremely social animals. They're constantly nuzzling and licking each other in order to form better bonds or reinitiate bonds, things of that nature. And it's real easy in this day of COVID. Think COVID without the masks, going into a grocery store type of thing, or even going to a family reunion. Even better yet, because a lot of deer groups are familial units. So imagine having a big, full-on family reunion with all your cousins and second cousins, everyone coming back together. No masks during the height of COVID.
Right.
Transmittable. Spongiform, let me jump forward to encephalitis. Encephalitis means affecting the brain. And spongiform means it forms your brain into a sponge.
Oh, no.
So the easiest way for me to describe it, and this is layman's terms, is that it's what it is it's a protein. So just like our DNA, it's just mutated to have a little bit of a fold in it, or a hook, so to speak. And so these little proteins bond onto they once they get into our system, they go through our lymphatic system. So if you have a cut or a scrape, it'll go into enter potentially. We don't know for certain the actual entry methods. I can get into what we do know with the Merckx monkey study, which is interesting. But once it gets into our brains, we know it goes into the lymphatic system, or once it gets into the system, it goes to the lymphatic system, and then travels through that fluid to the brain. Once it gets to the brain, it hooks onto the brain cells and just unravels them, and just keeps going in and unraveling, like little spongy little areas of the brain here and there. So if it hits something like our memory bank, where our memories are stored, then we kind of come down with something like Alzheimer's, or the deer come down with something like Alzheimer's, where they don't remember what to do. This is all layman's terms. This is so if it hits something like a skeletal system, though, the thing that keeps your body heart pumping and breathing at night when you sleep, if it hits that, they just die. Guaranteed, though, they have, it's about an 18-month incubation period. So from the time of acquisition until the time of death is 18 months. During that entire 18 months or year and a half, they can be shedding the disease, so they could be spreading the disease to other deer. We do know it's transmitted through urine and fecal matter. So if one deer urinates on a plant matter and moves on, and another deer comes and eats, that plant matter, after it's dried, whatever, they consume it and they acquire it that way. And there is no sign whatsoever of the disease until the last, 2 weeks before they die.
Yeah, no wonder that.
So there's no way. Everybody who, I get a lot of hunters who say, I've never seen a sick deer in my life. I'm like, you won't. And I hope you never do. But that doesn't mean you haven't seen a deer with CWD. So it's a little scary, because that Merckx monkey study I talked about, that study actually it's a small group study, like 19, 18 monkeys. One was a control. They were all given for about 2 years CWD meat. So meat we knew had chronic wasting disease. Chronic wasting disease is actually like a cousin, FYI, is a cousin to mad cow or scrapies. Basically, it's that same prion, that same functioning agent, just in deer rather than sheep or cow. So the monkeys were given like a steak a day, just like you and I would eat steak, or if you're not a vegetarian. Anybody who enjoys steak would eat, a fully cooked steak for about 2 years, and monkey chow before, monkey chow after. It was only 2 to 3 times a week, that CWD steak, because in their course of their life, they tried to mimic what a human hunter might eat. They also, so that was one group of monkeys. One group of monkeys had scratches and then CWD rubbed on their skin. Another one injected into the brain. That one obviously became positive. So we know it is right there. That's kind of your proof of whether you can contain it or not. So the one injected with the brain did come down. The intravenously just into the blood, I don't think any of those have yet to come down with it. I think the one of them that got with the scrape, I don't remember that one. The interesting thing though was the monkeys who only consumed it, just like any hunter, but no other access to the disease in any other way, shape, or form. Some of them came down with it.
Wow.
So if you consume,
yeah.
so the theory now is, you know, and there's more research that needs to be studied, but that's the concern, is that by consuming a fully cooked steak, you might, there is that potential of contracting the disease. It's not a guarantee. Welcome to Mother Nature.
Right.
You know, and we don't know with any certainty. This was only one study. So that, but nobody, whether you're talking pig, cow, whatever, nobody should eat any diseased meat ever. You know, no matter what you're dealing with. So if nothing else, that's where, you know, we're trying to keep the deer populations healthy because of that. Because of that, it's 100% fatal. There is no known cure. There's no vaccine. There's nothing, and it's 100% fatal.
Have there been any cases of humans having it yet?
No, because there's no known cases there's nothing we know of. Because it's a brain disease that takes years when it comes to humanity. There is a similar prion in humanity. The isolated cases are in called kuru in New Zealand. We know about kuru because, you know, humans consuming the brains of the dead in order to release their spirits. Don't eat your friend's brains. Not advisable.
You heard it here, folks.
Don't go zombie on us. So there's kuru, but we figured that one out. There is there's one that I can't remember.
Mad cow is a prion too, right? Mad cow is a prion.
I was gonna say, I mean, there's mad cow, and that you know, there was that concern in the UK of humans coming down with it, but we didn't know. It took like 10 years of intense consumption by an entire population to really identify that. I mean, how many students of yours consume deer meat?
Probably not many. Yeah.
So,
I don't know of any hunters in the class. That's not to say nobody is, but I don't know about it yet.
So and even if you're not a hunter, you know, I was an adult onset hunter, but I had venison well before I was ever hunting. Just because you're not a hunter doesn't mean you shouldn't know about the potentials. So the one we do know a little bit about, at least, is Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease. Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease is the human variant of chronic wasting disease. So Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease is one disease we know of, and we've started studying and trying to figure it out. However, we noticed there's a different disease that mimics it, and it's called Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease variant. Because it mimics Creutzfeldt-Jakob's. It's the human prion disease, but we don't know how or where these variants get the disease.
Okay, I'm sorry we got off track there with the disease, but I think I introduced them to mammals, but we did not talk about chronic wasting disease yet, and I know that's such a significant issue that I wanted to make sure.
In our area, especially if you have any students from Wisconsin or near the Wisconsin border, that's where it was coming in from, is Wisconsin. So be very mindful about that. So because of chronic wasting disease and how important it is and how significant it is on our deer population, because any disease that's 100% fatal, you don't want it to permeate into the species. We have been maintaining it at approximately a 1% prevalency rate. Areas of Wisconsin have it up to 50.
Wow.
we have noticed a correlation between, as prevalency rate of the disease increases, shock, populations decrease.
Yeah.
So as one goes up, the other one comes down. It's a direct correlation. And Wyoming has seen their hit on their elk and deer populations. So their cervid populations. So it's now we have a couple of control structures to know that we do not want this disease getting out of hand in Illinois. So we're doing everything in our power to maintain that. The way we maintain it, unlike COVID, is because we can't identify which deer are sick. We go into the locations that we know chronic wasting disease is located at and reduce that population. So that you don't get as many deer in as small and tight of a location to pass it very readily between them. You know, again, think of your family reunion. And we're taking that large family reunion dynamic and just kind of taking out some of the key players so that the populations are split up and more distanced between them.
Do you test the individuals then that you take out?
So all the deer go towards, there's a lot of research done with these deer, because if you can get research, why not? So we have like hair samples that go to Lincoln Park Zoo. I think there's a new antler study, but I don't know anything about that really. So someone's researching the antlers, I think. The spleen goes somewhere, the fetus goes to U of I, and then of course we take the retrophalangeal lymph nodes and ovax. Although we have a new, testing procedure we're starting this year, so we may just start taking the retrophalangeal lymph nodes.
Cool.
So, but what that entails is sharpshooters in order to do that. So I am one of the DNR sharpshooters. So that's what I drove all the way down to qualify, because we do have to qualify for that. I drove all the way down to qualify for that on Wednesday. Yesterday, I was at William Powers, double checking the blinds, trying to get things set up, talking to the hunters that were there, and fishermen. I mean, everybody talks. So yesterday I was at William Powers getting set up for that and double checking what's needed to get that all ready to go, because then youth waterfowl season starts on October 10th and 11th, and then the main season is on the 17th. So opens the 17th. So I need to have like everything, all my ducks in a row, so to speak, come preferably the 10th, but for sure by the 17th. Tuesday, I was in a seminar, wet soil seminar, to try to learn how to adapt the landscape to bring it back to what it used to be, to help feed waterfowl and other animals. Because if you bring one species in, other species come in also. So wet soil, wet mesic soils webinars of what I was studying then on Tuesday. And then Monday I was back to James Pate Phillips State Park, getting that prepped. Other things I do then are, then last week it was wood duck banding. I band wood duck. In the summer I do geese and doves. The doves I can literally do right in my driveway out here, or wherever there's some gravel, because doves, just like all birds, they don't have teeth. They use their crops in order to break up their food, and they need to eat they love limestone paths. So if anyone runs down like the gravel trail systems, it's usually limestone, and they take those little pebbles and chomp on those a bit to put them in their crops. So as long as there's a trail system somewhere, I can band doves. Actually, somewhere I have my responsibilities. So like there's how many? There's a list of 15. Is it? I can't turn the page. 14 like priority things, and CWD, surveillance and management, obviously is top. Implementation of hunting and trapping programs, deer removal permits. So that's like nuisance deer.
Okay.
Wildlife monitoring, so the bandings and surveys. We do roadkill surveys every month, or anytime I'm out in the road, if I see roadkill, I have to track it. So
Oh,
we do roadkill surveys. We do spotlight surveys in the spring. So right before leaf out, if you see anybody going through forest preserves or something like that with spotlights, we're counting every single species we see out there, including domestic cats.
wow.
Um,
So what's the purpose of bird banding? Are you just doing it to any bird so that you can keep track of the population size?
Specific ones that I personally do are goose, duck, dove.
Okay.
There has been other species that are banded for different reasons. Sandhill cranes, for example, there was a study going on, research going on about sandhill cranes, so they were being banded for a while. Obviously, the piping plovers in downtown Chicago, those ones are banded. But banding is a federal program that the feds have asked the states to please implement. It's in some cases it's been going on since the 30s or 50s. Woodcock surveys and songbird studies, those have been going on for quite a while too. We don't band anything, we just go out and it's a very specific regimented survey. But in short, we go out, drive around, and listen for birds.
Yeah, cool.
It's a lot more technical than that, but that's the short of it. But the banding is, we try to get, it's, I always called it survival numbers, but it's really mortality rate. Because you can't, when a bird is banded, you can't, if it's alive, the only way for you to know if it's alive or not is to recapture it and then record the band number. So we do have some, when we do our traps for like wood ducks, we do sometimes get recaptures. And we'll record that kind of information. Sometimes they're the same years and they're just a dumb duck. Other times it's from years prior and in totally different areas. So like a Manitoba wood duck might be caught, for example. So that data then, we take that data because we then at least can know where it was banded. If it was hatch year, then we know how old it is when we recapture it and acquire it. We can, wherever it is recaptured or what a lot of hunters refer to those bands as jewelry. So like I've never acquired any animal with jewelry, but now that I have a whole ton of them, it'll be interesting if I do or just give it away. There was one that I could have, but I let a kid have it. So you can take that band then, or the jewelry, when you acquire it through hunting, and see where that animal was banded at and how long ago, and then you record it to say, I have harvested it, take it out of the system. So then we also, because of that, we know how many animals we've banded. We can estimate population size because we know that each female can only lay so many eggs, so to speak, and we know what the populations are kind of doing where they're doing it. So we know the production rates, and because the hunters are able to give us the numbers, then the bands, we know what the mortality rates are at that point then.
Very cool.
So we do ban very specific animals because it's a federal program more so than a state. State, when you have research programs, anything can be banded. Turtles are tagged and banded, especially the Blandings turtles.
That's what I studied. Not Blandings, but turtles in general.
Turtles in general. I love herps. So does my son. So I'm hoping to get him. Yep. So the turtles at James Pate, for example, they have little radio transmitters on them, and in some cases, and then of course the shells are notched, so we know which ones are which. So we do, but that again is a county level. So everything from, and if you get any research, I've not known a single municipality that is interested in research. Not to say there won't be one. But usually it's like the county forest preserves or the county conservation districts, whatever's in your area. So it's usually the forest preserves and conservation districts, the states, or the federal governments that are backing the research. And then it's usually through universities such as yourself.
Right.
So to do the actual research. And then we are able to provide any information in order to assist.
Sure.
One of the most interesting research projects going on now is the goose research in Chicago. So if I
Can
recall,
I ask you this question that a student asked about geese? So this is Tommy's question. What are your thoughts on Canadian geese nesting in Chicago? Maybe you could tie that into.
Perfect. Well, so Canada geese have been around migrating through here for eons. Ever since the flyway really started forming up. Historically, there were a lot more mallards in the area than Canada geese. And we started noticing, though, an increase in Canada geese population in the area in Chicago. And we weren't quite sure why. One of the, like I was about to say, the most interesting research that I've been able to help out on with rocket guns. That's always fun, walking around Chicago parks with this like canister and just pretending you're just a normal hiker or normal person with a backpack on walking, and all of a sudden and you shoot out this net that's like rocket propelled, and it captures as many geese as possible in that all of a sudden. But because they know, the researchers now, because when the researchers try to like beeline it straight to them or try to walk around, they have a very different walking pattern. And here I was watching all the researchers doing what they're doing, but I was watching everyone with backpacks who was going like from point A to point B. The geese wouldn't move whatsoever. So I grabbed a backpack and just threw it on, and a hoodie from someone. I borrowed a hoodie from someone and just walked like I was walking, to school or whatever. And all of a sudden I stopped, turned, and hit the rocket thing, and I got 5 geese that way.
Wow.
So it was entertaining to learn. But what they're learning, researching there, not just me, but what they are researching then was that the geese who fly into Chicago and overwinter in Chicago, you will not guess what their survival rate is.
Is it high? Is it like 90%? Higher? 95? Not 100.
Yep. What they found, I mean, sure, there's outliers. There are outliers that, like, a goose will get hit by a car.
Sure.
The particular geese that got hit by car were not part of the study. So that there are things like that. However, what they found, even though the turf grass is one of the lowest nutrient kinds of things, and if they eat too much of the like bread, that sticky stuff like bread, popcorn, anything that when it gets moist it gets kind of tacky, when any bird consumes that, it gets stuck in their crop and then they can't, it's bad. So don't feed bread to the geese, please. Don't feed the wildlife, period, but especially not bread, popcorn to them. And there's virtually no nutrient for them in that anyway, so please don't. But what they're finding is, even though they aren't getting the nutrition that they want, and they are dropping their weight significantly by staying in Chicago, they are 100% survival.
That's wild.
So that was, now the last time I helped them out was like not last year but the year before, so that's data up until then. So I don't know if it's changed, but that was that was really, like, I was shocked to hear that, because just like you said, it's unheard of. So the geese are coming to Chicago to overwinter, predominantly. So they'll come in from Canada and everywhere from the north, and even from the west, like western suburbs and stuff. They'll come into to downtown Chicago to stay at the parks because they survive. There's less predators there. They only have to worry about the people, and half the time the people feed them. Right. The other half, they just chase them, and then they just have to run away, and they're fine. Right. There's a lot of people, us humans, we like our lakes. So there's a lot of, and we seem to love to have turf grass straight down to the water level.
Right. That's ideal.
So it's ideal for them. They can, when they feel afraid, they just waddle on down into the lake. They stay in the lake for a little bit. Once the threat has passed, they waddle back out and just keep on consuming. So the predation is low. The disease you would assume might be high, but we haven't been seeing any disease come into the area. However, when there is anything when disease does come into the area, it just wipes out. You know, when I get calls, it's because I get, you know, many geese at one time, because there's so many all piled in so close.
Right.
No COVID. Think COVID. So we do have that concern.
So do they nest here, or do they just overwinter here?
They do. So that is with them overwintering.
Yeah.
The nesting, so then they, you know, they're nesting, they always pair up, you know, to breed, and they go out to claim territory. So a lot of times though, the geese that are in Chicago, those geese do migrate back to where they were from. There are some local geese that do stay local. Okay. They do not migrate because they don't have to. They have, you know, everything they need here here in Illinois. So, or here in Chicago, in the parks and everything. So in those cases, they do have some that nest. I would say, just like everything, that there needs to be a balance.
Yeah.
You know, having the geese around will provide the food for the raccoons and the coyotes and the other urban animals that are there. If we were to exclude 100% of them, there won't be that food base for some of the other animals. Shrews especially, they love getting those eggs. So it provides.
Sorry, what'd you say? Who loves getting eggs? Shrews.
Little shrews.
Cool, yeah.
So you can always tell when a nest is kind of predated upon because of the way the eggs are. And they're no longer, you know, they're not viable because the shrew ate the insides out of them.
I would have thought that the eggs would be the same size as the shrews.
If you saw a cake the size of you, that was your favorite cake.
All right, yeah, good point. Okay, that's not going to You're right. Good call.
So, a lot of people don't realize we are mammals. We really, our basic instincts are not that far off from a lot of mammals.
Yeah, you're right.
So insert whatever your favorite food is.
Raspberries.
Well, you're a lot healthier than I am.
Because they're so sugary. Raspberry pie, raspberry tart, whatever. But a raspberry the size of me, if it tasted like a regular raspberry, would not.
So they do provide a population base, or a food source, and if the animals, the other wildlife then didn't have that food source, then they will be looking for it somewhere else. Right. And yeah, I get enough calls about raccoons. I don't want any more, because they don't have the, you know, goslings to feed on, or the egg to predate upon. Right. So there is a balance. I was also part of one of the seagull research studies, and if you want to get in on some of that research, that's amazing. Like, you wouldn't think seagulls are that big of a deal, but we radio transmitted them, and apparently they are all over the place.
Cool.
So I don't have much information on that, other than it was a lot of fun that day.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Okay, let's get into some more questions from students, because it's been really fun talking to you, and I want to make sure we don't run out of time.
Fair enough.
I have until 9:30. Is that too long for you, or is that okay?
No, that's fine.
Okay, cool. Okay, so Millie asks, what is your favorite part about being a wildlife biologist?
The variety. No 2 days are the same. I get frustrated sometimes when I'm in the office day after day. I know I have to do 50 million other things, but I got 75 phone calls coming in, and I gotta catch up. So there's part of our jobs, there's also to restore and maintain the locations where the wildlife, are. So I'm looking forward to getting back into a lot of restoration ecology, because I had been doing that basically off and on for 25 years.
Yeah.
So I miss that once in a while, and I'll get the bug to try to get back out. But I know what I got to do in the office. Excuse me, is just as important. So, and I get to then work on things like speeches for various organizations to try to encourage them, to help them better understand the importance of hunting. And one of the programs, for example, we're trying to really push for is municipal hunting. So like I forget his name that asked the goose question. If Chicago were to allow goose hunting within city limits, how would that change the population dynamics? And would they then come to the parks at the large quantities that they do every winter?
Sure.
So
interesting stuff.
Yeah, so I love the variety
Yeah.
the most, I think, because don't get me wrong, it gets hard when you have to leave the house by 3 a.m. in order to do a bird survey or qualify, get in qualifications, and then turn around and be to work, by, leave. If pre-COVID, I would be leaving my house by 7 a.m. to get to the office by 8. But so that gets rough. And with sharpshooting programs, we're out till 2 in the morning, and then on every Friday, all of us are back in the office at 8 a.m. So, get home at like 2:30, bed, hopefully if you're lucky, by 3 a.m., and then getting up at 6 a.m. to go to work, right after getting off work. There are days that are hard like that, sure. But the variety is what I think I love the most.
That's a good answer. That's part of what I love about being a professor too, is I can study anything I want to. Like my lab can go in any direction. If I get tired of working on turtles, I can work on something else. And it's the prices we pay for that freedom.
Yes, indeed.
Yep. Okay, so Veronica asks, for someone who's interested in being a wildlife biologist, what recommendations do you have for them to best set themselves up for that career?
Try it. Try it first. What I did when I was a kid and in high school, I only knew 2 things. I wanted to either work with animals or work outside. I didn't know what there was to offer.
Yeah.
I was working for Lake County Forest Preserve District when I was 16, and they said, go to college. Whatever you do, go to college, get a degree. Come back to us because it'll be easier to get a job. Well, they said that, I graduated college in 2000, and they said that when there was and then a hiring freeze hit.
Oh.
So I had to deal with that kind of situation. So there's always going to be hiring freezes. There's always going to be trouble. It's always going to be hard. But the one thing I knew, I wanted to see what I wanted to do. So I worked as a vet tech, worked at a veterinarian clinic, and then became a vet tech for a while. And because I figured there's my animals, become a vet. And about the first time I put my hand in a living dog's stomach to retrieve a ball that was stuck in it, I passed out.
Oh no.
The second time I tried it, I passed out. The third time I realized this is not the career for me. So I can apparently handle dead things. I can't apparently handle living things.
I'm in the same boat. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So apparently it's not me. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's when I knew the career as a veterinarian was out. I didn't know what else there was. So I went in for environmental conservation, but I loved wildlife. I wanted to end up working with animals. So I studied a lot of all of the like extracurricular courses then was something to do with wildlife.
Yeah.
What I didn't know then that I wish I knew now was that there are internships, there are programs, there is summer work. Get in, like the DuPage County Forest Preserve has a fantastic research program with turtles.
Cool.
So you can do a lot of, and Lake County Forest Preserve also. I know those two counties have a wildlife biologist. I know both of them. And every year they're looking for research interns or assistants to help them in the summertime. So get in with them. You know, if you want to become a wildlife biologist, contact the counties that you're living for. I know even Cook County Forest Preserve, Chris Anker over there, he may even have some work, some internships, something. And don't ever think that your work, what you're doing, is trivial. You know, even if it's something like mowing the grass, you know, I always heard you got to put your time in. Well, that's kind of true. You have to prove to the team that you're willing to help the team out, even when it's something as menial as like mowing the grass. You may not think it's important until you go back there one day and you see all the kids playing on it, you know, or you're able to, like, fast forward 3 years, you're doing, you know, a frog survey, and you're able to find the frogs because you've scared them out into the turf grass that you used to eat. It's
all connected.
Yeah, I was going to say, exactly. I was about to say, it really is all connected, and you may not realize that in the moment. You may get frustrated that you're not seeing yourself on the right path. It took me 17 years to get my dream job. And there were many a time during those 17 years that I was highly frustrated with myself, frustrated with where I was at, just everything. But I never gave up. I just kept trying, you know, never stop trying. Never stop contacting people, because you never know who is going to put you in touch with who. And always keep learning. Anytime there's a seminar or presentation or, you know, some kind of workshop, the people you can meet at those workshops is invaluable. So ironically, my last day prior to me starting with the DNR, I ran into John. Oh my gosh, what's John's last name? He's now the assistant director. Oh my God. Don't let him see this.
That's okay. No one else.
No, that's Mike Redmer. Don Rogner. There we go. Okay. He's now the assistant deputy director of the DNR.
Wow.
I knew him because I had kept going to the different seminars and stuff. He knew my face. I knew his face. Yeah. John Rogner was in charge of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in the regional area. Wow. And I was constantly asking him, you know, so heard of any new jobs? What am I doing wrong to not get in here? Blah, blah, blah. And my last day, I was able to go up to him, who was a speaker at that seminar, and say, you know what, John, I'm finally in. And he was super excited. So, and now he's like my boss's boss's boss. So everything's connected. Just don't give up and keep making those connections, keep learning. And get in every place you can.
Thank you. That's really great advice. I'm excited for them to hear that. Hope they feel inspired. Okay, Zahara asks, what's the most rewarding experience out of all your prior endeavors that you've had in the field? That's a big one.
Most rewarding. Okay. So I will do my best not to cry about this. As I said, I'm a CWD sharpshooter now. I'm also a single mom, and I went through a divorce that lasted over 3 years and $250,000. I had to file bankruptcy and lived a very difficult life that I didn't even know how food was going to get on my table for me and my 2 young children. When I started the divorce, my son was 2, my daughter was 4. So very young at the time. I obviously had to go through food banks and a lot of different entities and organizations that helped me. during that time. There were several weeks where we had, the only proteins were different beans, and I don't know how to cook beans. So the kids ended up calling it Mommy Surprise, because I had no idea what I was doing. Didn't know how to cook. I didn't, not to the degree that I needed to. I'm, like I said earlier, I'm ADD, so me and planning, a constant battle. And then I became unemployed. So for a while there, it was very difficult. When we didn't have beans on the table, we had venison from the DNR sharpshooting program that provides all of the CWD negative meat that we shoot throughout the year, goes towards the Northern Illinois Food Bank and other food banks in the area. And there was many times where the food on our table was different donated foods from various hunters to the food banks, and the chronic wasting disease, disease-free venison that the DNR sharpshooters were able to acquire for us that year. We donate something like 40,000 pounds of venison a year to food banks throughout Illinois. So as much as this chronic wasting disease is a difficult disease, it's also extreme. It provides a need in locations that otherwise don't have protein sources. Eggs, milk, and meat were like the three things that I was constantly battling, trying to afford. And for me to get that meat on the table was huge. And now, fast forward, the divorce is final in 2017. So fast forward 3 years. I now have a stable job. I am, stable employed job. Maybe not making as much as I did in the private sector, because if you go government, you're going to see a pay cut. But the benefits, are I think substantial. I have a solid job, and now I am one of those people who are out sharpshooting and getting the meat done for people like I was 3 years ago.
Nikki, thank you so much for sharing. It's really inspiring and really rewarding.
So hands down, I mean, that's part of the reason why, as a hunter heritage biologist, then sorry.
No, it's okay. You got me too. Yay, students! See some adult women cry.
Part of the my hunter heritage biology then job focus right now is actually starting a program to try to get the hunters that are out there who enjoy hunting, because if you guys have never, your students have never gone out and tried hunting, have them call me, have them contact me. I'll be more than happy to take them out, show them what scouting looks like, show them what restoration to maintain it looks like, show them what all the hiking around looks like, the different signs that we're looking for, because hunting is only a 1 day, 1 moment type of thing.
Yeah.
In order to prep for that 1 day of hunting, though, it takes tons and tons of prep and lots of time ahead of time for that 1 moment. Yeah. But that my job now is to focus on how to encourage the hunters then who enjoy hunting and get more meat than they may need to people, like I was 3 years ago, in order to try to make that connection so that we don't have families going without protein again in Illinois. Right. Because if the DNR can donate 40,000 pounds, what could we do if we had the hunters of Illinois help out too?
Yeah.
So that's one of my jobs. That's my project right now that's on my desk. Cool. So it's a little close to home. So that's probably the most rewarding thing. Yeah. So yeah.
Thank you again. Thank you for sharing. That's really great. And it's a nice segue into the next question from Georgina. What is your advice for someone who wants to learn about hunting?
Of course, call me.
Okay.
um,
I can share your contact info with them.
Oh, by all means. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep. By all means. With this whole COVID thing, emailing me might be a little easier. But if we can schedule a time to talk, over the phone, that might, or even meet up if they're okay meeting up at one of the parks, even we can meet up, not a problem. Like I said, I was an adult onset hunter. Mm-hmm. Both my parents were office rats, as I call them. Excuse me. My dad was a CFO. A chief financial officer for some head hunting company. My mom was head QA/QC of Abbott Labs. So totally in the offices, never had anything. I was always the single kid that was always outside. Like if mom knew she couldn't scream my name inside because I would be outside anyway. I just had this love of nature, and I taught myself then how to skin I taught myself with the roadkill on the side, usually roadkill squirrels. So I learned how to skin animals by just roadkill. Mm-hmm. Like I said, as I aged and realized that we are growing more and more apart from our food sources, that can't be a good thing. I realized this back in high school. It got me thinking all through college, well, what can I do different then? Grow your own food, have a little bit of garden, see what you consume the most in your house, and try to supplement what you consume the most here. Unfortunately, milk and eggs, I can't have a cow and chickens in the backyard. So, I grow my own grain, and I harvest. Then I have a bucket over there filled with just grain berries that we do mill when we try to bake bread. Things like that. And hunting was just this natural segue then for me to try to get the meat. During those 3 years hardship, I went out waterfowl hunting and was able to get Thanksgiving dinner because we had a bunch of geese then on the table. So, I never had big meals, but Thanksgiving dinner was goose, for that, goose and pheasant for that exact reason. So I went out and taught myself how to hunt. I ended up going to a program that Bass Pro Shop put on, and met a woman there who kind of took my hand and helped finish teaching me, what to do. But beyond a single pheasant hunt, I don't think we ever really went out. So it was just me learning how to do it myself. Now we just launched huntillinois.org. So we just launched a new website, huntillinois.org, that you will have at your fingertips then a lot easier information on where you can hunt for what, and what you need to know. Of course, by all means, acquire from a state park or download off the internet the digest. This has all the state regulations in it. Everything you need to know is in it. As you can see, I've already bookmarked it a bunch for myself. So make sure you have that. And then jump on Learn to Hunt. Illinois has its own program called Learn to Hunt. And they have a lot of fantastic information on how to even just get started. So the Learn to Hunt program is what I never had a couple of years ago, that I wish I did. So if you're interested in learning to hunt, by all means, give me a call and definitely check out the Learn to Hunt program.
Great, thank you. Mm-hmm. Megan asked, what's the biggest misconception about hunters that you hear, and how would you respond to someone with that viewpoint?
I hear a lot of different things.
For sure.
I think probably the most often misconception I hear is that hunters just go out killing. And like I had alluded to before, harvesting an animal is one moment in time. And there is so much life with even that harvested animal after the fact, as well as a ton before the fact. like I know one of the dream catchers, for example, upstairs that I made for the kids, has different, bones and feathers from the animals, that I have acquired. So artisans utilize a lot more of the animal than some people may think. A lot of hunters, while some people may not see taxidermy as an art, some hunters do enjoy being able to remember the animal by having it taxidermied. The taxidermy and skins are what really provide the educational tools for the next generation, so that they can see and feel and touch. Like we have a bison head at the office that's been, it's a taxidermy bison. And I don't know many people who can say that they've honestly felt bison fur.
Right.
So people don't think that hunters honor the animals after the fact. And then there's also they're just looking to kill. But in order to harvest an animal, you need to understand the animal's habits. You need to understand why they're doing what they're doing. You need to understand where they're going and where they're coming from. You need to be out scouting and seeing, watching, and observing all that information. You can't do that just on the day that you shoot it. You have to really watch the animals, and you get to know them really ahead of time. And that's why a lot of the animals actually are honored after the fact. Don't get me wrong. There are those guys or those gals. Sure. No matter where you go, there's always going to be that guy or that gal. But as far as the majority, I'm talking like the bell curve, that bell part of the bell curve. Most hunters fall into honoring the animal after the fact, a lot of work ahead of the fact, and a lot of my hunters actually are the ones who will put the boots to the ground to do the restoration efforts in order to restore the areas. Not many people without that drive put in the time that's needed. They just go out, they feel good about themselves, they stop going.
Yeah.
Until they need to feel good about themselves again, then they'll come back and do it. I'll fully admit now that I have kids, I haven't been out working the restoration aspects as much as I used to, pre-kids. I used to be out, all day Saturdays, all day Sundays, teaching the frogs on the week, 1 day a week during the week. And that was pre-kids. I put in hours and hours and hours. Now I don't go out unless the kids want to do something, or if I want to do something. Like I'm interested in hunting an area, I better go and help the area in order to encourage the deer to go where I want, or the turkey, or whatever. But also then it's putting back to the land, restoring the land the way it used to be too. So a lot of people don't realize that hunters put in a lot of time and effort to take care of the land or water that the animals need to reside in.
That's a really great point. Thanks for making that. And it kind of segues into the next question too, about woodland restoration. Jen asks, do you have to deal with more invasive species now, or has the amount been pretty consistent in your time with the DNR or with your experience in the field? Are you there?
It kind of broke up a little bit there. What was in the middle?
Do you have to deal with more invasive species now, or has it been pretty consistent in your time with the DNR or in your time in the field?
Well, I haven't had, so I've only been with the DNR since May of 2017. Okay. So there's that. I haven't really seen that big of an uptick in the time here. I have, like I said, I worked with the Lake County Forest Preserve District back starting in about 94, I think 1994 is when I started working for them. And even then, the buckthorn and honeysuckle were rampant, but there wasn't as bad of like, I never noticed Oriental bittersweet. I never noticed the autumn olive. We for sure didn't have hogweed then. and even wild parsnip. Yeah, there wasn't much of that. There wasn't the number, and miscanthus. Oi, we never had to deal with Phragmites. Are you kidding me? That was never. It was cattails. Sure, cattails were annoying, but the monoculture thereof. Reed canary grass was heavy. Brome, Hungarian brome, like, because we planted that because we didn't know. The farmers planted reed canary grass because they thought that's what they had over in Europe. They thought that was better for the livestock. They didn't realize the nutrient dense vegetation that was here, the prairies, the nutrients that the prairies had, we now know is just unbelievably amazing. But they didn't know that, so they tore it all up and planted it in reed canary grass. And here we are.
Yeah.
So some things you have been around since, since we started planting it back in the 16 and 1700s. We can't get away from that. However, yes, I have, in my time in restoration, I have noticed an increase. I went to school in Northern Michigan University, up in, basically on Lake Superior, up in the UP of Michigan. And up there, I didn't notice in 96, when I went up there, 96 to 2000, I didn't notice that many species. Kind of like back here, we didn't have much. In Illinois, we didn't have much compared to now, I think. But up there, even the populations were sparse of any invasive species. Now, I mean, garlic mustards everywhere. There's just, everything just has spread so much. And the different species, I think, have increased because humans are constantly trying to get the new and the better, and we don't necessarily realize what damage by bringing that stuff in may have on our local environment.
Right.
So yeah, I think there has been an increase, but there also has been an increased awareness now, though, too. So not to sound all doom and gloom, there are a lot more people now that are realizing what bringing some random bug in might do to the rest of it, or releasing an alligator in Humboldt Park.
Oh, that happened right when, like, it was the month I moved to Chicago, and so all my friends were like,
"Oh, welcome."
You didn't, right? Like, you're the only herper we know. You didn't do that. I was like, no, of course not. But yeah, that was funny.
Yep. So yeah, don't introduce non-native species, please. I get a headache.
This was another good segue into this question from Eric. Are there any species currently being reintroduced to Northern Illinois, or will any be reintroduced in the near future?
I don't anticipate so. I mean, we're at that point where things are coming to us. Piping plover, for example. There's that old saying, if you build it, they will come. Mm-hmm. So as we restore our wetlands into a more healthy ecosystem that is diverse, very diverse, stable, if we can maintain it in that stability, it will bring back and attract more. That's why that Tuesday, that webinar I was part of, that's what I'm learning to do, that is to be able to bring the wetland. Right now we have a constant, in the background, for example, there's that constant lake there.
Yeah.
That's all that Wolf Lake is. It's just this open lake. It provides refuge when Lake Michigan is rough, but it doesn't provide any food source or any other kind of shelter, really. So my goal is to drain out one of the lakes and provide a food source for them to come in so they can shelter on the Wolf Lake or go over there to feed. So when you build it, more animals come to it. As we vacated the beaches, Monty and Rose came to town. Sandhill cranes have increased. Whooping cranes have increased. We see whooping cranes now come to Illinois naturally. As we talked about before, I have gotten my call of bear, wolf, and cougar. You know, I mean, there was that cougar that was shot in downtown Chicago in 2008. So they are naturally coming here. We are trying to build things in order to encourage them, like barn owl houses. We're putting up more barn owl houses. We're putting up bat houses. We're putting up osprey platforms. And I got to, like, for example, yesterday I was on the lake checking out all the blinds, and I got to watch an osprey fly in from God knows where and acquire, I think it was a muskrat, on the railroad tracks, and just start eating it right there. And then, like, we motored by a little too close, I guess, and it, like, had to labor to get back up with the muskrat in its claws. Cool. You know, as it was flying to, you know, wherever it went to Birch to finish eating it. So we are, I mean, if you provide, you know, all of us, whether we're human or wildlife, food, shelter, space, you know, we all, in water, we all need food, shelter, space, and water. If we can provide the space, which has the food and shelter and water in it, then that's what we need to do. So the more restoration and maintenance we can provide on the landscape, the better it'll be. And we won't really need to do any reintroduction of anything. You know, back in the 1900s, there were only like 2 maternal herd of white-tailed deer left in Illinois. Whoa. One in White Pines and the other one in Shawnee National Forest. Wow. We did reintroduce deer back in like the 1930s because of the, you know, because there were only 2 maternal herds left, and that was it. So we did reintroduce deer then. I know about that. I don't recall about river. I think the river otter came back naturally, and now they're eating all the Blandings turtles. So there's that annoyance. Yeah. One threatened species for another. Yeah. Same thing with peregrine falcons. We build skyscrapers, peregrine falcons move in and they eat the piping plovers. Right. So, you know, we're in a complicated, unique place of providing habitat for so many different species, and now some endangered species are consuming other endangered species. So we have to figure out that balance too. Right.
Don't you wish you could just train them? Just like pick a different food source. Just right? Please.
Change. We love you how you are, but change.
Exactly. That's so hard.
So, I mean, there's things like that. I mean, the smokestacks too. Some of the abandoned industrial locations on the south side of Chicago are seeing a lot of cliff swallows because they're coming in and you know, going into the smokestacks and living there. We would never see cliff swallows around here, or we wouldn't see many cliff swallows around here because we don't have many cliffs. Right. Right up there with peregrine falcons. Peregrine falcons probably shouldn't be around here, but hello, skyscrapers. Right. So we have that dynamic that's really interesting to watch develop and evolve. And as we learn best from our mistakes. So I'm sure. Oh, and then we introduced turkey. We helped the repopulation of turkey in Illinois. Yeah. But other than that, I don't recall knowing of any other species that we reintroduced. I'm pretty confident that the theory is, if you build it, they will come, and they are. So some things that some of your students can do to help with the reintroduction, you know, so to speak, is to, like I said, put up the bat houses or put up the barn owl houses. Find out what the endangered species, you know, in your local area are, and, you know, see what that might require. Because if you provide, you know, a shelter and some habitat, you have a higher chance of getting it than your neighbor. That's for sure. Cool. And then your neighbor gets to benefit from your bats.
Right. Right. We're actually doing a bat project that starts in a couple weeks. Have you ever used, I happen to have it right here, these before? They're bat detectors that they run off iPhones or iPads, and it detects the
No.
sound and IDs the species.
So, okay. I had the bigger version of that.
Nice.
We got to, we were doing the echolocation surveys.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it because we just got these at NEIU and we got 6. So the students are going to partner up and all get to practice, and we're going to they're going to build species distribution maps based on what we find.
Nice.
I detected
nice, yeah.
3 different species in my backyard the other day. It was cool.
Yay! That would be awesome. Yeah, and even if you can have those, find a location that you could put up a bat box and see what it is prior to and see what it is post.
That's a great idea.
Know, just the thought, if you're able to keep doing this.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
So I love watching presence absence data.
Yeah.
I think just something as simple as that is always interesting to me.
Yeah, that's cool.
So
let me see if there's any other quick questions we can cover. I think we've done almost all of them. There's only a few.
Okay.
Then
I'll try to answer more quickly. Sorry.
Okay. No, you're fine. Okay, Tony asks, how do I join Environmental Defenders of McHenry County, and what do they do specifically? Is that not a good quick one?
Oh no, well, I used to be on the board.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. So what they do is they are an advocacy group. So if you're looking to have boots on the ground restoration, you may be more interested in the Land Conservancy of McHenry County. So the Environmental Defenders of McHenry County started back in like the 60s, I believe 40s or 60s. They created the Land Conservancy of McHenry County to be the restoration and boots on the ground, kind of organization. So if you want to get out and do the restoration portion of the thing, the Land Conservancy of McHenry County is the place to be. If you want to make changes to the law and advocate for what you think should be done and stay on the forefront of change, go with the Environmental Defenders of McHenry County, because they are that advocacy group and that defending group for environmentally conscious endeavors. So ironically, I just got the email that if you want to meet a lot of my peeps, you can come to Green Drinks on first Wednesday of every month. There is Green Drinks of McHenry County. It's hosted by the Environmental Defenders of McHenry County. Usually it's at Duke's Ale House just down the street from me, because I live in Crystal Lake. So it's not far from here at all. And they meet every month on the first of the month and just discuss things. This month they're discussing water cremations instead of fire cremations.
Cool.
So you get some really interesting topics.
Yeah.
I've spoke there once. We get solar panel discussions. A lot of different things are discussed at Green Drinks. But with the Environmental Defenders of McHenry County, like I said, that's the advocacy branch. You just call Cynthia, call the number, they'll hook you up. If you want to, and then every month we do recycling drives, and we can always use help at recycling drives there too. So once you're on the list, you'll
hear about
once you become a member, you're on the list. So
cool.
Highly recommend it.
Thanks, Nikki. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're so busy, so I really appreciate that you took the time to talk to me in the class. And I anticipate that you'll have a few students emailing you or calling you to get in touch. And
yeah, definitely.
It's really been a pleasure. And I hope that sometime in future semesters we can have you come talk in person. Really
wonderful. Cool. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all. I know DePaul has me come out, so it doesn't, I get around.
Awesome.
But all right. Awesome. Yeah, I look forward to hearing from anyone who's interested in any of the hunting programs. So Otherwise, you guys take care and best of luck in all of your endeavors, wherever your paths may lead.
Thank you, Nikki.
You're welcome.
All right.